Hello everyone. Today we're going to review chapter 9 about the risk and the cost of capital. And we will show an Excel example after the review. Question 1. Company cost of capital. Suppose a firm uses its company cost of capital to evaluate all projects. Would it underestimate or overestimate the value of high-risk projects? The answer is overestimate, because high-risk projects will have a higher cost of capital than the company's existing securities. Therefore, the value of a high-risk project would be overestimated if the company cost of capital is used. It's just basically some definition. Number 2, weighted average cost of capital. A company is 40% financed by risk-free debt. The interest rate is 10%. The expected market risk premium is 8%, and the beta of the company's common stock is 0.5. What is the company cost of capital? What is the after-tax weighted average cost of capital, assuming that the company pays tax at the 35% rate? So the company cost of capital is the weighted average of the cost of debt and the cost of common stock. So 40% financed by risk-free debt, and this is the cost of debt, 10%, risk-free, and 60% financed by risky assets, and the required rate of return using the CAPM is 10% risk-free rate plus beta multiplied by the risk premium, which will give us the company cost of capital 12.4%. And since only the risk-free debt will have the tax shield effect, so the after-tax weighted average cost of capital is 1 minus 35% multiplied by 10% and 40%, and the risky part is the same. So the after-tax weighted average cost of capital is 11%. Number 3, measuring risk. Look back to the top right panel of figure 9.2. What proportion of Citigroup's returns was explained by market movements? What proportion of risk was diversifiable? How does the diversifiable risk show up in the plot? What is the range of possible errors in the estimated beta? So the R-squared measures the proportion of the total value in the stock's returns that can be explained by market movements. And the part that is left is the risk that is diversifiable. Citi's R-squared showed that 0.49 or 49% of the variation was due to market movements. The remainder, 51% of the variation was diversifiable. Diversifiable risk shows up in the scatter about the fitted line. The standard error of the estimated beta was 0.34. If you said that the true beta was 2 multiplied by 0.34 equals 0.68 for either side of your estimate, you would have a 95% chance of being right. This is the confidence interval, and the probability of a 2 sigma, 2 standard error, is 95%. So we have this 95% confidence interval. For definitions, this question is simply to illustrate some definitions. A cost of debt is the expected return on debt if the debt has very low default risk. This is close to its yield to maturity. B. Cost of equity is the expected return on equity. C. After-tax weighted average cost of capital is a weighted average of the cost of equity and the after-tax cost of debt, where the weights are the relative market values of the firm's debt and equity. Equity beta is the change in the return of the stock for each additional 1% change in the market return. Asset beta is the change in the return on a portfolio of all the firm's securities, debt and equity, for each additional 1% change in the market return. Pure play comparable is a company specializing in one activity that is similar to that of a division of a more diversified company. We often use the comparables when we are doing the firm valuation. G, certainty equivalent, is a certain cash flow occurring at time t with the same present value as an uncertain cash flow at time t. Number 8, asset betas. Which of these projects is likely to have the higher asset beta, other things equal, and why? A, the sales force for project A is paid a fixed annual salary, while project B sales force is paid by commissions only. And we find that the project A will have a higher beta because it's a project with a higher fixed cost, and it generally will have a higher operating leverage, which will lead to a higher beta. B, project C is a first-class only airline. Project D is a well-established line of breakfast cereals. It's easily seen that Project C is riskier because it's a first-class only airline, and the demand will not be as big as the breakfast cereal. So Project C will have higher beta because its revenues are more cyclical, not so stable. And for the spreadsheet functions about estimating stock and market risk, on page 236, you can find the full instructions about using these functions in Excel, about calculating the variance and standard deviation of a series of numbers, and variance and standard deviation, slope or beta, calculating the beta of a stock or portfolio, and the correlation coefficient, and the covariance. You can download the data from finance.yahoo.com to do the variance and standard deviation of the data, and then average variance and standard deviation, and then calculate the beta and the correlation coefficient. So that's all for chapter 9. Thank you.